Hello, and welcome to the 2022 Ohioana Book Festival. I'm Terri, Tocchi, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the Choose to Read Ohio panel. I am a children's librarian with the Stark County Library in Northeast Ohio, close to Canton. I have been involved with Choose to Read Ohio, the Ohioana Book Festival, and the Ohioana Library for more than 10 years, so all are near and dear to my heart, as is literature for young people. Choose to Read Ohio is a project of the State Library of Ohio and the Ohioana Library Association in collaboration with the Ohio Center for the Book and Ohio's libraries. Choose to Read Ohio encourages public libraries, schools, families, and others to build a community of readers and an appreciation of Ohio authors, illustrators, and literature. Choose to Read Ohio spotlights books by exciting, talented creators who write across genres, explore a wide array of topics, and appeal to all age groups. More information can be found at www.library.ohio.gov/CTRO, or by searching Choose to Read Ohio will take you there as well. We'd like to thank our festival sponsors and partners, all of whom you can find listed on the Ohioana website. And thanks to our official bookseller, the Book Loft of German Village. If you haven't been there, you should go. It's an amazing place. You can get copies of all the books featured at the festival by going online to bookloft.com. For everyone in the audience, we will be having the last 10 minutes of this session for audience questions. If you'd like to ask our panelists a question, please enter it into the Zoom Q&A feature. And now I'm pleased to welcome our authors and illustrators. We have Charlton-Trujillo, Sharon Draper, Terri Levinson, and Tracy Subasak. So I'm just going to give a little biographical information here on all of you. So is a Mexican-American author, filmmaker, and youth literacy activist. has written several award-winning books for teens and children, most notably the ALA Stonewall Award-winning Fat Angie series, and Prizefighter and Mikasa, a Parent's Choice Silver Honor winner. Charlton-Trujillo's short fiction appeared in the celebrated anthology Living Beyond Borders, Growing Up Mexican in America. Their debut picture book, co-authored with New York Times bestseller Pat Zelo Miller and illustrated by Joe Cepeda, Lupe Lopez, Rockstar Rules, releases spring of 2022. Off the page, Charlton-Trujillo is a dedicated filmmaker, the co-founder of the nonprofit Never Counted Out, and has enthusiastically served as a madrina for the Las Musas Collective. Welcome,
Thank you.
Next is Sharon Draper. This is a long one. Sharon is a professional educator as well as an accomplished writer. She has been honored as the National Teacher of the Year, is a 5-time winner of the Coretta Scott King Literary Awards, and is a New York Times bestselling author with Out of My Mind staying on the list for almost 2 years. She was selected as Ohio's Outstanding High School Language Arts Educator, Ohio Teacher of the Year, and was chosen as an NCNW Excellence in Teaching Award winner. She is a Milk and Family Foundation National Educator Award winner and was the Duncanson Artist in Residence for the Taft Museum. She is a YWCA Career Woman of Achievement and is the recipient of the Dean's Award from Howard University School of Education, the Pepperdine University Distinguished Alumnus Award, the Marva Collins Education Excellence Award, and the Governor's Educational Leadership Award. My goodness. Last year, she was named Ohio Pioneer in Education by the Ohio State Department of Education. And in 2008, she received the Beacon of White Humanitarian Award. In 2009, she received the Doctor of Laws degree from Pepperdine University. In 2011, she received the Lifetime Achievement Award for contributions to the field of adolescent literature by the Assembly on Literature for Adolescents of the National Council of Teachers of English, as well as the 33rd Annual Jeremiah Ludington Award by the Educational Book and Media Association, also for Lifetime Achievement. In 2015, she was honored by the American Library Association as the recipient of the Margaret A. Edwards Award for Lifetime Literary Achievement. In 2015, she was honored with the Anne B. Zarrow Award by the Tulsa Library Trust, as well as the 2016 Upstander Award by Antioch College. And we probably forgot a few things. And welcome, Terri Levinson. Terri is a New York Times bestselling children's book author and award-winning cartoonist of the syndicated daily comic strip, The Pajama Diaries, which ran from 2006 to 2020. The Pajama Diaries launched with King Features in 2006 and ran in hundreds of newspapers internationally until its retirement in 2020. Pajama Diaries has been nominated 4 times for the Reuben Award for Best Newspaper Comic Strip by the National Cartoonist Society and won in 2016. You can read the archives daily on comicskingdom.com. Terri is also the New York Times bestselling author of the popular middle grade series, Emmy and Friends, Belzer and Bray. Born and raised in Kingston, Pennsylvania, Terri lives with her husband and 2 daughters in Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome, Terri.
Thank you.
And Tracy Subasak. Tracy studied industrial design in school, subsequently working in the field internationally for 7 years, designing computers for the future before turning her focus to freelance illustration and design. Tracy's debut author-illustrated picture book, Jenny May is Sad, was published in June of 2021. She is the illustrator of several picture books, including Grizzly Boy, Ty Makes a Friend, and Sean Loves Sharks, which received a starred review from Kirkus, was a Junior Library Guild selection, and received a 2018 Washington State Book Award. Upcoming nonfiction picture book titled Wood, Wire, Wings by Kristen Larson is a bio of Emma Lillian Todd, the first woman to successfully design and engineer a working airplane. Tracy is the proud daughter of a Taiwanese mother who was a Chinese language instructor and art teacher, and an American father, son of Polish and Slovakian immigrant parents, who is an engineer. She was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, has lived in Taiwan, South Korea, New York, and San Francisco, and now makes her home in the PNW in Portland, Oregon. She is always eager to go adventuring and is a true believer that experience begets the best stories. Welcome to all of you. Okay, so we will go ahead then and get started with the discussion part of our panel. And if you would each talk a little bit about your featured book that you have. And then I was thinking that maybe a question to kind of be pondering for when we talk after that is, what inspired you to write for young people and what led you down that path? And that's just something to think about after we do our other things. So if we could go ahead and start with E.
Okay. So it's alphabetical. Okay. I'm with
you.
So the featured book is actually Fat Angie Homecoming. It's the 3rd in the Fat Angie series. Interestingly enough, most series you're expected to read sequentially. You could actually read each book out of order, or you could have the absolute joy of reading them in order and then following the journey of our character as she grows and learns and becomes a self-aware, self-possessed, rock star musical, beautiful fat girl who is loved by many and most importantly by herself. So the book is set, of course, in Ohio. Otherwise, this would be a different person talking to you. And the whole series takes place in Ohio. So in the first book, of course, I'll just briefly do the series because I don't want to give any spoilers away, but basically first book, in a fictional town called Dry Falls, Ohio. Her sister's missing in the Iraq War. She's got struggles at home, but she finds a place for herself on the basketball court because, of course, who doesn't love basketball? I mean, okay, there's like 3 people, but they're all like in another country, right? So anyway, and but also in all of the humor, in all of the hard, in all of the challenges that she faces, you know, there's this really strong will to find who she is in the world. And what does that mean? And I think a lot of kids are searching for that, but really in this case, it's it's in some really difficult circumstances. So as we moved into the second book, I won't give any away spoilers from the first book, but basically it's the Breakfast Club on wheels, but more diverse. And so it's a celebration of music and taking chances, going on road trips, and exploring Ohio. All of you who know Ohio know the world's largest basket, you know, the world's shortest street. And there's certain other iconic places that take part in the book as part of the narrative and also a part of her growth. And then we get to the final book, which is Homecoming. And no, it's not just about a homecoming, because I know it sort of gives away that. Hashtag, that is not a spoiler. It's deeper. And so in that final book, it is really about Angie going from sort of meek and quiet and an observer of her life into stepping into a participant and having agency and fun and a lot of romance. So yeah, that's the 3 books, and the pretty yellow orange one is the one that's featured today.
Perfect. Okay. And we can go ahead then to Terri. Are we Terri? No, Sharon, I'm sorry. Okay. I need to rehearse my alphabet.
That's okay. Well, I'm going to start with Out of My Mind, which I wrote like 10 years ago. And I said, I'll never, ever, 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 ever write a sequel. I am done. Melody has said everything she has to say. I have made my point. I'm done. And it was done until we had a pandemic. And I was home for a year and I had nothing to do and no place to go and no libraries to visit and no schools to visit. And so I had received literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of letters to write some more about the story. So I said, okay, so I did. So that's what I did. You know, the things we used to make kids write at school was, you know, what I did on my summer vacation. And I never did that as a teacher, by the way, but that's commonly assumed that teachers do that. But what I did during the pandemic was write a sequel to Out of My Mind, which is called Out of My Heart. And both of them take place in Ohio, although I don't think, I think I did finally say that it was in Ohio. And the first one I didn't actually specify, but she goes to a camp called Camp Green Glades, which is located in a place called Greengrass, Ohio. And I had to really do some looking because there is something that has to do with green or grass or glades or forests or something in every single little bitty town in Ohio. So there is, at least at the writing of this book, there is no place called Green Glades, Ohio, but that's where it takes place. And it's about an hour from her home, and she gets to go to summer camp like every other kid but she's not like every other kid. Melody can't walk, she can't talk, she can't communicate, she can't feed herself, she can't do anything for herself, but she is the smartest kid in the school. She's the most brilliant kid in the school. So it's the first day of summer vacation. She's bored like everybody else. All her friends have gone off to specialized camps, and she says, I want to go to camp. So I invented a camp for Melody, and it's a camp for kids with special needs, but she grows and she learns, and for the very first time, she makes friends, because through the first book, she was just struggling, trying to get her voice heard. And in this book, away from the kids at school, I call them mean kids, she finds friends. And that, I think, is the most significant part about the book, that and the campfires at night. So I'll tell more later. That's a quick summary.
I shared with everyone else, Sharon, but I think before you came on, I was listening to that on audio yesterday while I was doing yard work. And I'm not sure what my neighbors think, because I was laughing out loud, I was crying, I was shouting array. It was like a wonderful, wonderful story. So
thank you.
And we'll go ahead and move on to Terri.
Hi, okay, so excuse my little makeshift stand there. This is Truly Tyler. It is the 5th book of my series. I've already forgotten what it's about because I've now written 2 more books on top of it, so I have to jog my memory. But I'm on a kind of a yearly deadline with these. But this was my pandemic book as well. And I had a really hard time writing it because pandemic. I must have written about 4 times, but by the time I was on my 4th try, I think it finally clicked. And then once it clicked, everything flowed great. So it is about this boy, Tyler, and this girl, Emmy, and sort of their budding friendship that started in my first book, Invisible Emmy. I just love their growing friendships. So I decided to expand on that, and they team up to create a comic book together for an art project, and that just kind of jumpstarts their friendship even more. But it also starts some complications with their own little friend groups, and you know, Emmy feels like she might not be cool enough to hang out with Tyler. He's also her crush, and he's just like, you know, sort of going through the same dynamics as well. And it's just a lot of middle school friendship drama and family drama and things like that. But the cool thing about this book is it actually features their comic book that they create together. So it is, if I could find it, you can kind of see Emmy's chapters. I had to create all new artwork in like a very short time span. I'm trying to find his too. And this is sort of an example of Tyler's artwork. And then it has just, you know, the regular chapters and then the graphic novel chapters, because it's kind of a hybrid book. Their chapters, each character's chapters switch back and forth, and they're all stylistically different. So I think I covered it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. And then Tracy Subasak.
Hi. So the book I'm sharing is Jenny May is Sad, is a picture book. I'm the author and illustrator of this book. Jenny May is Sad is about how to be a friend to someone who's sad. Jenny May is she sad? It's very explanatory in the title. But I'll just read the first opening line because it's very short. My friend Jenny May is sad, but you might not be able to tell. And it goes on to say that she's, you know, even when she's sad, she still goes to school. She still lives her life, you know, she still has to do things. And sometimes that sadness can come out in different ways. And her friend here, who I call Maddie, she's kind of the supporter in this situation. So she's always just keeping an eye. She waits for Jenny May after school when she has a chat with her teacher. And sometimes they just walk quietly together because that's all you can do is be present with your friend. So it's a lot about, it shows some ways how you can support a friend. And I think one of the biggest ways you can do so is by eating popsicles together. And also by hugging, because being sad is hard. So yeah, it's very simple but important message.
It's so good though. It's such a great book. I know you just said it's simple, but it's not. I love these kind of stories for young people.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I was done.
I'm a fan of this book. This is one that I give out. I really love it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I have to agree completely. It's not a simple book. There's so much there. And what's really great about it is you can, so I'm a children's librarian and I use a lot of picture books in my work. You can share it with the little ones and they enjoy it and they understand, they see, and then it's great for grownups too, because it's really quite a wonderful book. So, okay, so I think there's a lot of things that we could talk about with writing, with your writing experiences and your books and your work. But I was wondering about maybe you could share with us what inspired you to write for young people. if you've done more than one thing or you do more than one thing, what inspired you to write for young people, and what took you down that path? Like when you decided, or if you knew your whole life that's what you wanted to do, and I feel like, so we have YA with E with your, but I consider them young people, even though they're all taller than me, I still consider them young people.
Some of them are.
Yes.
Okay, so my entry into writing was actually, I don't know. To me, it was probably not like everyone else's, but actually I started in middle grade. That's where I started, and then I went to YA, and then now I've moved to picture book. But the sort of the genesis of like beginning that was I always wanted to be a writer growing up, and I grew up in a really small, impoverished town in South Texas, and but I grew up in an adopted family, that was Caucasian. I was Mexican American, and there were, there was a lot of things by which made that harder than it should have been. And one thing was not having support in the home to be creative and to be a storyteller. And the other was living in a book desert and not having access to books, right? And so, but there was this innate hunger to write and to also be a filmmaker. Like those were the two things, and to be the drummer for Kiss. So those were the three things I wanted as a child. So, when you're 5, you just see makeup, cool boots, and lots of explosions, right? For anyone who knows what Kiss still is. So anyway, but that transition, really, was I also went to Ohio University for grad school in filmmaking, and was, had the opportunity to go out to Los Angeles, work with a known director, be on a producer track, actually make money for the first time in my life. And it was every dream I could ever want. And then my best friend had been killed in a car accident, and my whole life just hit like a silence. And during that period, I turned down the job, and I turned down all the things I really wanted because I didn't know how to grieve. And so instead, I was challenged by another writer out of Wisconsin, Pat Schmatz, to write this story, Prize Fighter in Mi Casa, that she didn't think was that great. And I wrote it in 2 months. I won the Delacorte Del Yearling Award through Random House. And then now I'm a writer for children. And I have none of the training that I know many of my colleagues have, that they've read, and, Sharon's taught, and she's read, and she's been in the classroom. And so many of you have had all this sort of wealth. I was literally someone who ran around with like film cameras, loading them, and, editing and editing bays. And now I'm writing for young people. But what I found was the greatest gift of that was that even though the book that I wrote at the time wasn't Fat Angie, it was a different book. It was really about healing some of those wounds, even though the book had nothing to do with the loss of my best friend, right? But it was about taking that energy and shifting it, as opposed to, doing something that could have been very destructive in my life at that point. Mm-hmm. And I think that writing gave me that. And then once that happened, then another book. And then I realized that there was something that could happen beyond the page. And that's what you can do with the book, which is going out like many of us did before the pandemic, and sitting with young people and having conversations about the topics or the themes in the book. And I think for me, that's the biggest thing that inspires me now, all these years later, is the transition from, the sort of activism and the literacy that goes from the page to like the stage of life, right? And what we can do out there. And so I think that even though I came to this very unconventionally, my heart is all in it for the young person, that if this series doesn't work for them, or the other books I write don't work for them, I'm like that person that says, but wait a minute, let me find the one that does, kind of like a librarian will, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just love that I get to be part of creating shelves that aren't book deserts, and that's what I really would have wanted as a kid. So yeah.
Perfect, and so important.
Sharon, you're next.
Yeah.
I'm glad, because that phrase you just said, the activism of literacy, that's brilliant. I didn't even know there was such a thing till you said that. I wrote it down. I said, oh, that's good. Because when I was a kid, I was a reader. The library was walking distance from my house. So, the librarian knew me, the librarian would take me home at the end of the day because I lived at the library down the street. And so I absorbed books, I read books. I didn't realize that I was living a life that had an active literary basis. I didn't know that. I just knew I loved books and I loved the smell of that library. And they let me go and check out books from the grown-up side way before I was old enough to do so. And, but they always check to make sure, the lady, she would check and make sure that I didn't check out anything that was too advanced for my tender years, except she was absent every Thursday, and that's when I got the good books. But books were always part of my life. I can't remember a time when my mother didn't read to me or talk to me about books. And she was not a reader, but she read to me, and she opened the door of reading for me. And I think as writers, what we do now, this whole idea of activism of literacy is a really powerful thought, because what we do is slap books in the hands of kids and say, I don't care if you don't like this book, find another one. If you like this one, then find one like it. If you don't like it, toss it and go find another one. Find all the books with green covers. Find all the books with rivers on the front. I don't care. Just find what you like and jump in. And I compare it to, the gifts and the talents that we have. There are many gifts I do not have. At Thanksgiving, they do not ask me to cook. They tell me to sit down and be quiet until somebody who knows what they're doing has done the cooking. When we go to the swimming pool, they watch me to make sure I don't fall in because I cannot swim. But, so we have our gifts and we have our powers. They said, Mom, just sit there and watch the water and watch the kids and read something, and call somebody if the kids jump in. Don't jump in after them because we can't save both of you. So by reading and by combining books and making books be the active route to things, I had a world that was open. Oh my goodness. I learned stuff that no 11-year-old was supposed to know. And I didn't even know what I was reading. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I love that phrase. And I am now a literary activist. Thank you for giving me that phrase.
I have to agree with you, Sharon. I read that, I believe, on your website, E, and I consider myself an advocate, but I am now an activist. So thank you.
We're something else now.
Yes. Okay. So we'll go ahead and then with Terri.
Wow. Yeah. I love that term as well. I think I came about it a bit unconventionally as well. I was not a huge reader as a kid, but I was really into art. I was a really quiet, shy kid growing up, and art was kind of the way I expressed myself. And that also turned into comics. I loved comics. If we had graphic novels and illustrated novels back then, I would never have left my room. And so I always wanted to be a cartoonist. I created comics from the time I was a little kid, and that was my way of telling my stories. And so I've always married art and writing. I think that's just a natural way that I do my storytelling. And the first way I did that was to become a comic strip artist. And I love that. But I wrote for adults. I wrote like very parent-to-parent humor because it was very autobiographical. It was about, a crazed working mom, and it mirrored my life. And the characters grew older, just like we all do. So I decided. I think it was around 2014. I had other cartoonist friends who were dipping their toes into the author world, and to me, it seemed like, oh, maybe I should follow suit because it's just like doing comics, but in longer form. When you create a graphic novel or sometimes an illustrated novel with a lot of pictures, So I kind of approach it autobiographically as well, but instead of approaching it from my adult side, I approach it from my kid side, because even though I don't remember the day-to-day stuff that I did when I was 12, I definitely remember all the feelings I had back then and how awkward and awful I felt all the time. So, and I've always been drawn to humor. So it's just, it was just combining of the three. And so that's when I created my long form comic with Invisible Emmy and all the other ones in the series. And I think I've always been like 12 at heart anyway. So it seems natural to write for kids. And I'm so happy that, that I took that leap.
Very good. I struggle a little with graphic novels. I have to make myself look at the pictures closely. I went at one point in my career from a public library to a school library, and graphic novels were a little new. It was a little bit ago, and I started a small collection, and some of the teachers were not happy. Luckily, the principal got it, and she came down and asked me how much money did I need to start a collection. So,
oh, I'm so happy to hear that. And
yes.
I'm such an advocate for graphic novels. I think as long as you get a kid reading, and if it's a gateway to other books, I mean, you can read books of all kinds. It's just one particular type of book. So I'm glad it's catching on quickly.
Yes. So, and they love, and it's really popular. They're so popular.
Yeah.
Super important for that, and then on their own too. So yes, thanks for doing that. So, okay, and Tracy.
Oh gosh. Okay, so I also did not have a conventional start. As you heard in my bio, I started out in design, but I did start writing and illustrating picture books since I was 5 years old at High Point Elementary in Gahanna. I hope they still have it, a little room where you can take your story and bind it, and then you have your own book. So I have a collection at my parents' home that I still look through because I'm very proud of it. But yeah, I think about like why picture books, and I think it's because I'm an illustrator first, and I still tell stories through art. And Jenny May is Sad is 200 words, so I know there are 200 carefully selected words, but I show a lot in the imagery as well. And I think picture books just lend well to the skill set that I have. I also had trouble, like reading was hard for me. I grew up in an immigrant house and English was just hard. It was like the subject that I struggled with the most. And that's when I turned to comics. That's when I turned to picture books, because I knew that I could get through it. So I've always been attracted to telling stories that way as well, because I still struggle with English. So it's nice to just find the medium that you can, I always, when I do school visits, I always promote, if you want to tell a story, you can find any way to tell a story. You can write the book, you can illustrate the book, you can cut out pictures from a magazine and paste it together. So that's just something that I think about when I write a story.
Well, I think those pictures are, especially for the young readers, it's interesting how a wordless book, if you see a little one sit down with a wordless book, they can tell you the story. They don't need the words. And so those pictures are definitely super important for them. I think we're doing okay on time. We can go. Oh, okay, we have plenty of time. So we could go. Is there anything that anyone has that they would like to, that is especially important to you to share?
Can I just say something to what we just talked about, though, about language real quick? and
Absolutely.
pick the books. I just picked this up during yesterday's Independent Bookstore Day. Has anyone else read this yet?
No.
I haven't seen
Oh
it
my
yet.
God, it's amazing. And the way in which we talk about language, and often how there's sort of like, we can blame the person who comes to America for not speaking English, right? Well, this flips the script on that completely. And not only is the design amazing, and I'll make this fast, but just the idea that this young boy is trying to say what his name is, and he'll say, hello, my name is Dat. In gibberish, the bus driver says, and then this is how he perceives what this said to him, right? And it's interesting because he's always a human boy, but everybody else who's speaking the other language is sort of this cartoon character, right? And in black and white. It's just a really wonderful book about language. When you were talking about being from an immigrant family and trying to understand, it's like, I picked this up, I've read this like 6 times since yesterday, and there's something new in it each time. And I don't know if it's an Ohio book, but I just think it's a really wonderful book. I just wanted to say that. So anyway, sure. I don't want to take time from everybody. I just wanted to share that.
I'm going to read that.
Me too.
It's fantastic. It's called Gibberish. So.
Well, I'm sure he thanks you for the plug.
Mm-hmm.
I really did love it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think that's interesting when we were talking about the language, or even communicating in general, with Out of My Mind, Sharon, how Melody thinks just like everyone else, but she can't express it. And it's just all of that with language and communication, and so many important things that I think books help, books and reading bring to so many of us. Is there anything else? We can just grab a question if nobody wants to share anything super.
Sure. Question.
Okay, let's get to the questions, because they always ask good questions.
The question and answers. I'm not seeing anything.
I just wanted to add to what E was talking about with, well, I guess maybe I'm just going to connect with you really quick. When you were talking about your experience with your best friends and how you used, writing to move through it. That is exactly what I did with this book. And I wonder if that's why you connect with this book, because it's like, I started writing it a month after my mom passed away. And so it was just like this catharsis, but it was also, I heard I'm a TikTok addict. And lately there's been something that's been coming up to me that says, someone's been saying, you are the adult you needed as a child. And I'm like, oh my God, that's true, because this is the book that I needed when I was going through all the grief and like trying to figure out, how do I even express this? Because it's really hard to do.
Right.
So to be able to write books and like open a door for people to be able to bring up something they need to talk about, or be able to connect to something, one of the books that, we have here. That's like the really special part about being here in this panel with all of you and being able to publish books.
Sharon, I wanted to pivot because, you said you were going to write that sequel, and, it was 10 years had passed. The first Angie came out about the same distance for me for that too. And really there was no idea there would be 2 other books, right? And going into that idea of, we write the books that give us that, sometimes they're cathartic to us, right? And we hope of course we hope they entertain, we hope that they're cathartic to other people, but obviously once we put it into the world, it belongs to them, right? But like, Sharon, when you went back after 10 years, can you think of how it was to return to that world? And was that challenging to come back and to crawl into that mind, in that mindset?
Yeah, it was. And like I said, I don't think I would have been able to do it if we were living in normal world.
Yep.
But we had moved into Bizarro land. And you got to be an old-time Superman comic to know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But, you know, we everything had changed. Everything was different. The rules were not the same. You couldn't go, you know, I remember wearing gloves to the grocery store and, you know, and double masking and the fear and all of that. So the one way that I have to express myself is by writing. And so I had to give somebody else some words. I had to give somebody else something to do so that I would have something to do. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like the perfect time to answer the questions about what had happened to this child. Everybody thought she was real. And I said, well, you know, let me make her reality. Let me extend her reality. But I had to think of something that was powerful, that was strong, that was meaningful, and that had, you know, as a reader, I've read zillions and zillions of books and the sequel and the sequel and the sequel. And I said, I've got to make sure that this sequel is worthy of, you know, of this girl, of this character, of this little person that I invented. So it took a long time. It took a lot of, from the inside of me, it took a lot. It was not an easy book to write. It seemed like it, but I would get up at 6 a.m. and stay up until midnight, and I'd written, you know, a page. It was very, very difficult.
Wow.
But it was kind of like giving birth, you know, just wait until she was ready to be born.
Terri, I was just going to pivot real quick on that too, though. And so I'm assuming for yours, I've read one, so I haven't read the series. But as you're going through the series, do you find that it's easier for you to continue to move forward now that you know the world and sort of the space and the way things move? Or do you find yourself like Sharon at times are just sitting there going, I don't know how to, like, what's sort of that for you, especially during the pandemic specifically? If you want to share.
No, thanks for asking. It's gone both ways. Every time I think I'm in a groove, something happens. So I've had books pour out of me, and I've been stuck on others. So I definitely had second book syndrome with my second one. Mine are like yours, where you could read them. You could read them as standalones, but it's lovely when you read them in order because you see their world expanding as well. Yeah, Tyler was, I think, the worst, but it also became one of my favorite books, I think, because it was so hard won. so yeah. I definitely I think I was very humble by the time I got to this book, because I felt like I was finally in the groove, and then boom. So I never take that for granted.
How did you get past that being hard, though? You say it was a hard one. How did you get through that?
Yeah. Oh, well, that was like a little story in and of itself. It was the first time I was writing from a boy's point of view. And I overthought it, very much so. And I really didn't need to. I was trying to get into the whole psychology of boys, and I also overcomplicated the plot. I threw in an extra character I shouldn't have. And it was when I just kind of panicked, then took a step back and thought, you know what, I just need to do what I've done with most of my other books and just write as authentically as I can, just write from the heart, because it really doesn't matter, you know, who the character is. If it's coming from a place that you know, then it's going to be authentic. And that's when everything kind of clicked. So, and then it, like I said, it flowed out of me. The story worked. It was a lot more uncomplicated than it needed to be. So yeah, but it's still nice and layered the way I like it. So, but the last two books I wrote, just they were easier, and I think it's because once you realize to write from that authentic place, it just, you know, it just clicks a lot more, and you know your characters a little bit better as well. But yeah. But how was it for you when you wrote the second two?
Well, it was terrible. You know, like Sharon, like, you know, I mean, I was never going to write a sequel, and then there'd be 2 in the end, and, you know, write a series, and, you know, and it's like, it's like, you think, don't write Jaws 3, like, don't like tell the same terrible story after Jaws 2 and 3. And so I think, but the real work was, you know, is in the second book. I let her go into a place that was a little harder than I thought. And some people say I didn't. So they think, no, it was really lighter. So I don't know. For me, it was harder. Maybe it was harder for me because it felt personal. Maybe that's what it was. It was harder for me anyway. And then, you know, but I think, and by the time I got to the third one, you know, I sold it on the title, Fat Angie Homecoming. And I said, it's about, you know, and whatever 2 things I said. And I had no idea. I had totally lied. I didn't really know what I was going to write. I was totally lying on the pitch, and I sold the book. And man, when my editor sees this later, I'm in so much trouble. But yeah, I totally fibbed. And so then I'm like, well, and I know I can, you know, all y'all know that just because we sell something on a title doesn't mean we can't change the title. But then, like, I have like ADHD and OCD. You just put those in together. I'm like, I really can't change the title. Like, and I can't say all the words I said at the time that were, you know, colorful language. And so yeah, I was like, now what? It can't be Jaws 3, right? It can't be. So anyway, so
that's a great title. I mean, I've got OCD, so yeah, you can't change that title.
You can't change the title. So anyway, in the end, what happened was it again forced me to go even deeper and really kind of examine what's the arc of the characters. You know, I mean, that's, you know, whether you're writing picture books, right? Or you're writing novels, or even, you know, writing verse, whatever you're creating, the arc of something, whether it's within the one book or in a series, is that you really have to look at what's the arc, how are they growing, how are they not growing, right? And I think that's what I had to really look at is this is the last one. Although I was asked, is it the last one? Yes, it is it. We're done. And just wait, 5 years from now, you know, I'm going to go, ding, I sold it on a pitch. I don't know what it's going to be. And yeah, but in the end, it's really about looking at those. And I said, how is it that if I came into book 1 and book 2, and I was the reader, and what would I really want to see in book 3? What would be that win? And it was really, I was like, oh, I want to see her just be incredibly bad blank, because I can't say the word here, but I want her to be total, like, step into her power and to be loved for who she is, whatever size she is, whatever shape she is. And I wanted, and I want that journey for the other characters in the story as well. What are their arcs, right? And so it just got down to nuts and bolts and said, if I saw the movie trailer, what would that be? I want to write that book then. I want what's on the big screen. So yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. I basically just took over your job and
oh, well, I could sit and listen for hours, but we do have a few questions. So
awesome.
Let's go with those. So someone is asking Tracy, would Jenny May's teacher realize that Jenny May is chronically sad and discuss the matter with her parents and suggest that Jenny May seek some help, see a child psychologist or something like that? What are your thoughts? If her teacher would see,
this is such a case-by-case situation. I did not define why Jenny May is sad in the book, and I've definitely gotten some curiosity from readers, and I did that for a reason, because there is such a wide range of sadness, from chronic sadness or depression to just like, I had a bad day. And the point is, it doesn't matter. The point is to talk to a teacher, talk to a parent or an adult you trust, to be able to talk to your friends about it and have the courage to open up about it, because you know what, everyone gets sad. So I appreciate that question. I would say it's definitely case by case. Like if a teacher noticed that it's like every day there's something, there's some expression of sadness or anger, it could be something going on beyond depression or anything chemically, it could just be something like bullying or something going on at home that's hard to digest. So it's, I suggest talking about it and making sure the kid can talk to someone they trust.
I think that's a real important topic, because when we're writing books for children, we expect them to be happy. We expect them to have happy, good endings and happy endings. We don't want to do anything too heavy for the little ones, but the little ones have those feelings. So I think it's real important what you've done.
Yes, it is. It's an important, really important book, I feel. Okay, so we have some more. If you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
I'd say believe in yourself sooner and do more. You know, there's just more and more and more. Just, you know, I want to be able to write as many books as I have read. And, you know, so it's just like get in there and get started sooner and do more. That's it. So I'm on my way. I'm going to write a book 3. Let me call out of my big toe, I think.
Anyone else? What would you tell your younger writing self?
What about you, Terri?
Oh boy, the pressure. I would say it's okay to fail. That's really hard, being a perfectionist. And not everything is obviously is going to turn to gold. So just keep trying. I was luckily, I don't know, I didn't listen to all the inner demons and just kept going for it as I was growing up and getting older, and I knew what I wanted to do. So thankfully, I had that going. But it's like, I'm still trying to teach myself that it's okay if not everything works.
We have the same double doors. I keep thinking you're in my house.
Oh, yeah. It's on the other side.
So my dog is sitting right by my, she's scratching herself.
It's the magical
wondering
double
why
door.
she can't come in.
Oh,
okay. So we have another. So somebody's wanting to know how publishing your first book changed your writing process. Did it change it?
It made me realize how hard it is. I was a reader, so I thought being a writer would be easy, because reading a book is, whoa, I read that one. Okay, give me another one. And so it made me appreciate the art of writing, because writing is a lot harder than reading, especially when you want to write something that you want someone else to read.
When I wrote my first book, Prize Fighter to Mikasa, it was, you know, almost the entire, almost said cast, characters, they're all Mexican American. And at the time when that came out, there wasn't a predominance of that kind of story. And I think for me, I just thought it was normal, because I grew up with everybody being Mexican American, you know, and so it was strange that it was almost novel to people. And that was my naivety, because of course I hadn't come from this background. So I think, though, as far as changing process, I learned really quickly because it came out, I think in 2006, that I learned really quickly that I had to fight for what I believed in and hold my ground, especially around language. And so I think that was important. It was a middle grade book, and there were times where there were suggestions of removing Spanish or so on and so forth, saying, well, readers won't understand. I'm like, well, put a glossary in the back. They'll get it. And so, yeah, I think it taught me to stand up and also to be humble. So there were two things, I think, from that first book. Was it taught me to stand up and to be humble. And, you know, of course it changed my process. I'd been a playwright and a screenplay writer. So, I mean, it was totally different. Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's see what else we have. Someone wants to know what type of books you all like to read for fun.
Okay. This is my book. This is called The Library Book. It's by Susan Orlean. It is the best book in the world. It is a love story to libraries.
Mhm.
And it starts off with a fire in a library, and the way she describes how the smoke curled around the pages of the book. And it was just like, and it tells, it's kind of like a history of libraries throughout the world. And like the what we lost when the library in Alexandria was destroyed. But it's also about the joy of reading and the joy of writing and what libraries offer to communities. Like when there's community uprisings and everybody is in the streets and people are all upset, the library is open and there's somebody saying, you can come in and use the bathroom and have a glass of water. You know, the library is always there. And it's a love story to libraries, and it's by Susan Orlean, and I recommend it to everybody. It's the best book I've ever read, seriously. And I've read a lot of books.
That is on our next Choose to Read Ohio 23-24 book list.
Yeah.
So author there in Ohio. Yeah, Ohio connection.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she's good. I'd love to meet her.
Yeah.
Her and Rita
hopefully
Dove.
We'll be back to a live festival, hopefully someday soon. So
get Rita Dove to come. I want to meet Rita Dove.
Oh,
Bye.
Yeah, I think someone wants to know if how you select the names for your characters. Is that an easy thing to do when you?
I'll go for this one.
Okay.
Especially since some people have asked me. Jenny May, May, M-E-I, is a Chinese word. So my initial brain thought, I guess I won't write it down because I might embarrass myself. But May is a little sister, but it's also beautiful. So if you say it differently, May with the third tone is beautiful. May is little sister. And for me, it just felt really natural that it was Jenny May because she's, belongs to our hearts a little bit in those two aspects.
I start off with the red notebook and I put everything, and I put down character names and descriptions, and I just bought a new red notebook. So when I do that, and I scribble out all my ideas and thoughts and names of characters and places and everything.
That's something I do too. I just replaced the red notebook with OneNote, which is in Microsoft Word for free. And it's kind of like if you took some of the best parts of Scrivener for screenwriting or for books and you put it into OneNote, which is free, and it just consolidates it. And I do that too. I put the character's name, descriptions, you can put photographs, everything you want there in one place. And then I just kind of click through and I look through and I have a name list. So that's, and also, but I mean, Sharon, and I don't know about everyone else, but there has to be a musicality, right? On some level to what the name is. Like it means something. We don't just go up and say, well, that person's Bob and that one's Bob and that one's Bob. One, that's ridiculous. But, I mean, there's a method to the madness, right?
Mine has to follow an adjective, so it has to follow whatever adjective is in the title.
That's true. I mean, truly, pencil is not the same, or Pedro or whatever. It's a totally different name. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're probably we might have gone over our time a little bit, but no, it's not. It's okay. Okay. So we'll go ahead and finish up now. Thank all of you again for coming here. So for my first time, I'm saying, can we just keep going? I could listen to you talk all day. And for as far as the Choose to Read Ohio, the new 23-24 list. So every other year we come up with a new list of books. So that list has been released, and any of those things can be found at Choose to Read Ohio or the Ohioana Book Festival. Lots of places to find that information. So I think then, so a reminder that if anyone in the audience or anyone wants to get copies of any of the books that we've talked about today, you can do that at thebookloft.com, the Book Loft of German Village. And then thanks again to our festival sponsors and partners. And thank all of you audience for joining us. And I would just like to personally, professionally thank all of you, because every single day, I'm guessing a young person picks up one of your books, and the power there to see themselves, to see their families, their classmates, the world is just, it's so important. So thank you all for doing what you do. I can do what I do because you do what you do. So
special shout out to the Book Loft. I love bookstores, and thank them. Special hugs to the Book Loft.
Yes.
And all the young, the independent bookstores that survived the past 2 years.
Yep.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay. Can check out the Ohioana website if anybody has any other things. And I think we're finished today. So thank you all once again, and hopefully we'll see each other sometime soon in a live book festival. So
hope so.
Thank you
I hope we can.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Yes.
so
Hope
much.
we can all meet together in person next year.
yes, hopefully so.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.